So today we're in conversation with Ruth Jones-McVeigh. She is the founder of the Mariposa Folk Festival and was a significant figure in the folk movement during the early 1960s. And the Mariposa Folk Festival actually in 2013 is celebrating 53 years of success. So that's quite the recognition that we have here, and we're very happy to have Ruth with us today.
It certainly surprises me 53 years later. When I had the first one, of course, with the innocence of youth and confidence, I was absolutely certain it would be a success.
And here it is today. So tell us about Mariposa Folk Festival, how it came about, and what was your involvement, and how did you decide to do this, and all those wonderful things.
Well, I went to a talk that John Fisher was given. He was a motivational speaker who was going across Canada for tourism and visiting little communities all across the country, and saying that every small community should have a hook to hang tourism on.
Good point.
So I went home from there, and shortly thereafter I got the flu. So I had nothing else to do except think about it, and I decided that I love folk music. Orillia was a little quiet at that time, and so why not have a folk festival?
So you brought Orillia to life.
Oh, sure.
So the festival really took off here in Orillia, and after a couple of years, with some great success, but after a couple of years it became maybe a little too big for the community and of Orillia, and it left Orillia. What did you do about that? What did you think about that?
Well, there was kind of a blip in the fact that the festival sold or allowed people to get permits to camp, and it wasn't tied to attending the festival.
Okay.
So a lot of people came up from Toronto for party time, and they partied hardy, and they got the town council very upset, and rightly so.
Were they camping right on the property?
They were camping all over the place. Where there was designated parking or camping, and other places too, and climbing all over the Champlain Monument. And
okay.
Yes, it was not pretty.
Okay. Did the town of Orillia, did it make a mistake in letting the Mariposa Folk Festival move away from Orillia?
I don't know whether it was a mistake or not. I think they felt it was the only thing to do. And there were a lot of the townspeople who agreed, so that there really was no option at that time.
It kind of gave it a new flavor coming back too, so bringing it back actually probably gave it more notoriety, more
I tell you, I think we owe eternal thanks to Tim Lauer, who worked hard to get it back and who did a lot of work to get it on this little peninsula in the middle of Lake Couchiching.
So Mariposa has some great documentation. It has some great history here. It became one of the foundational folk events in Canada and quickly developed with international reputation.
Well, I guess it must have been a success because other communities such as Edmonton and lots of other places have developed their own folk festivals. The Mariposa, of course, is known as the Grand Dam, but there is one older one, but it has not been kept up all the time, so it has holes in its history, and that's the one at Miramichi.
Okay, but Mariposa was probably the most instrumental in influencing others and getting other people on board with that, and also keeping that folk culture happening here.
Yes. Well, I think we developed a lot of young people who were interested in getting going, and they had a stage to go to.
Absolutely, and I think we're still developing young people, which
is
indeed pretty incredible. So we're still developing the young. We're still developing a young audience, but we're also developing young artists. And I think you have a story to tell us about that.
Well, last year I was walking by the amateur tent, and I heard this young girl singing Patsy Cline songs, and I looked in, and she's 13, and she was just amazing people. I mean, people were coming to a grinding halt in front of this tent. So she was moved on to the beer tent, and she blew them away. And so ultimately, at 13, she, pardon me, appeared on the main stage.
Really?
Yes. And she's coming back to appear as one of the warm-up acts for Arlo Guthie this year.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's impressive.
So that's new talent.
That's really good. And you know, I've been around with the Mariposa Folk Festival for I think about 10 years. And one of the things that I notice is a lot of the people who play here actually later on, a few years later, now all of a sudden they're a household name in folk music or roots music or something else. And I've seen quite a few of those. It's quite impressive.
And their children.
And their children.
Yeah.
We see a lot of
grandchildren.
Absolutely. We're seeing a lot of that. So Arlo Guthie is one of those children.
Yes, yes. I met his father long, long ago, very briefly.
And I think we're in his trailer.
I think so. Closest I'm going to come, I think.
So in the year 2000, so the festival left Orillia. What year did it leave Orillia?
Now you've lost me because at that point my personal life took a few dips too, and I moved out to Vancouver Island.
Oh, so we brought you back with the festival?
Yeah, I guess so.
That's good.
But I've always been in touch with it, and any time I was in the vicinity, I always attended and gave them my views.
So it left Orillia, and then in the year 2000, there was a bit of a movement to bring it back to Orillia.
Yes.
Were you involved in that?
No, I wasn't, but Tim Lauer is a good friend of my son Bruce's, and Bruce has always been involved in the festival. He lives in Orillia, so I was really delighted that it came back.
I think you might have had a little bit of influence in there, no?
Oh, no.
Ah. So when you came in the year 2000, we brought it back, and how did that make you feel?
Very happy. Yeah, I very warm and fuzzy.
Should be proud too.
And I remember, now his name has escaped me, but the original manager for the festival for the first year said, by the time we get this on the stage, you will never want to hear folk music again. Well, he was wrong. So I still love it.
So now 53 years later, and the 53rd anniversary of Mariposa Folk Festival, and we're here today. As I said, you should be very, very proud of that. What do you think we're going to see in the future of Mariposa?
Well, I hope that it will sort of, as the expression goes, keep on keeping on, and that a lot of the stuff that's happening politically and sociologically in the world will be translated into folk music, because that's what it is. And you know, it has variations. I was very upset one year when there was a lot of rock. But there's so many crossovers now. There's country rock and country folk and so on. So I don't care as long as people are expressing their views and loving one another, which is what happens at folk festivals.
It does, yeah.
I just met a couple that got married right after a folk festival 6 years ago, and they had their little child with them. So that's the kind of thing I like to see.
Yeah, I like to see also when we're watching the main stage or any of the stage, and you see some of the kids around and they're playing and they're enjoying the music, and it's kind of just all sinking in. Yeah, I think it's important to bring the kids here.
Yeah, well, my grandson is here this year.
Is he?
Yeah, and my great-grandson.
Very good. That you need to be proud of too.
Oh yes.
So now there's different organizers, there's different members of the board, and you attend, and we still call on you. But how does it feel to see other people running it?
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The old order changeth, yielding way to new.
Very good, very good. Well, we're really happy to have you here with us. And do you still feel like do you still feel a part of the getting involved in some of the influences with the Mariposa Folk Festival? Do you still feel that?
To some extent, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What was your highlight of Mariposa Folk Festival in the '60s? What was the best thing?
The best thing, I don't know.
Couple of things?
Well, Ed McCurdy was one of my favorites, and I'm stumped. I can't sort of pick out a particular performer or episode. It was just, it's just the whole feeling of a folk festival and drifting from one stage to another and getting different flavors of folk music and different takes on it. I was at it wasn't religious because the song was "We Don't Need Religion," but it was the Sunday morning stage, and I always enjoy all the different flavors.
Yeah. And in the 60s, so now we incorporate a lot of different folk music from different cultures. Were we doing that then as well?
Not as much, and I'm happy to see it, although I didn't want to get too American.
Right.
I really like to see some of the native and Inuit and French Canadian singers. That's fine.
Okay.
But I want to keep it home.
I want to keep it Canadian.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We were talking about also, what roots and what folk music really was, and sometimes it gets too into rock. But one of the things that happens is that people, rock musicians as well, will take some folk music and they'll turn it into something else. I mean, even some of the old disco was influenced by some of that stuff. So in your mind, and based on what you were trying to bring here in the 60s, what was, has folk music changed from when you brought it here?
Oh yes, yeah. It's changed, but it still is telling the story of the things that matter to people, and the things that matter to people change from time to time. And what is very oppressive at the moment, hopefully, will not be oppressive in another 10 years. We'll have something else to worry about.
Absolutely. One of the things that I find too with the folk artists here, and just is for the most part, I find them really humble and really appreciative of their audience.
They are, and they're very friendly, open, and warm.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that draws everybody in.
Yeah, and I think also just being, like you said, going from stage to stage. How often can you go in to see a performance and actually right after the performance, they're walking off the stage, shake their hand and congratulate them?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to see the things that happen at places like Bohemian Embassy stage, where there's, other facets of folk music and history and tradition and all that kind of thing.
Do you have a favorite stage? One you like to sit at the best?
Of the small stages, probably the Bohemian Embassy,
Okay.
because we kind of started the same year.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so explain that.
Well, Don Cullen, who is the Bohemian Embassy,
Okay.
and I were both in Toronto at the same time, both going to folk clubs. And he, I met him then, and we have a lot of things that we can talk about and share in common. So I like to see how things are going there.
How many stages were there when it first opened here?
One.
One stage?
Yes.
All weekend?
Yes.
Was there a pub?
There were hootenannies off to the side,
Oh,
it was sort of the embryo of what was going to come, but at that time it was just the one stage.
Okay. Was there a pub?
No. Not officially.
Not officially. All right. Okay. So other than now we have 11 stages. So we had one in the 1960. We brought it back in 2000. Music has changed. What are some of the other changes that you notice today compared to back then? That you like. I only want to hear the ones you like.
I like everything that's happening. I find it very hard to...
Did you have an artisan village then? Did that start
No,
here?
that started later, and Estelle Klein is the one who brought in workshops.
Okay.
And Estelle and I didn't always see eye to eye, but that is one thing I completely respect
Excellent.
that she did, and it has been very valuable, I think.
Very good. When I hear the word workshop, I think about people learning.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of Mariposa Folk Festival, when I hear the word workshop, I think it's the artists versus the audience that has that learning as well, because we're just benefiting from hearing them. What do you think about the word workshop and what's happening on the stages?
Well, there'll be a guitarist who has specific licks that everybody wants to learn,
Okay.
or, you know, some other musician who has something that other people would like to share. And they teach, and it's a mutual teaching situation. So,
Yeah.
because sometimes somebody in the audience can show the teacher something.
I would love to see that.
Well, it happens.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'd like to see that. So I actually, my preference here at Mariposa, although I really like to watch the main stage and I do that in the evening, I really love to see different artists in their workshops and the fact that they can just incorporate their music together.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't, you know, and they seem to appreciate each other too. And I think that we can probably say that quite a few alliances have formed that way with different musicians by coming here.
Yes. I don't know of any off the top of my head,
Yeah,
but I know
me
they
neither,
have.
but I know it's happened as well. Uh-huh. So the main stage. What's your favorite artist this year?
Well, I was going to say Arlo Guthie because I really wanted to see him.
Excellent.
I was in New York, living in New York when his father was in hospital, and I tried very hard to go in and see him, but it didn't work out. But so I've kind of watched Arlo's, beginnings and followed him through. So I would really love to see him tonight. Depends on whether my family will let me stay that long or not.
So Orillia, Vancouver, New York, back to Orillia.
Oh, there are a few
in
little
between?
diversions there, like 2 years in Guyana.
Oh my goodness.
And I started out as a blue nose in Halifax.
Okay, explain.
That's what Nova Scotians are known as.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what brought you back to Orillia, other than the festival?
Mostly the festival and my son Bruce, and but what brought me back to Ontario, reluctantly, to some extent, because I loved Vancouver Island, was family. I mean, my family's almost all here. So, and I couldn't lure them out there, so I came back here.
Very good. Is there anything else you want to share about the festival with us?
Just that I hope it keeps on keeping on long after I'm gone.
Well, I do as well. I hope it keeps going as when I'm gone as well. But I think that it's really impressive that we have you here with us. I want to thank you for bringing this to Orillia and helping. I know you helped some way to bring it back, because if you hadn't started it, it wouldn't have come back.
Oh, that's probably true.
And something to be really proud of.
I am proud of it, very much so.
Thank you.
Next to my children, it's my greatest achievement.
53-year-old baby.
Yeah.